if you get a chance, you check out the original video for Mad World, because Roland's dancing is this kind of new wave Tai Chi, and it is enormously entertaining. He sort of does this. It's really, really cool. And there's a bit towards the end where he's almost silhouetted on this lakeside, and he's doing all his, and he's like invisible nunchuckers, and he's doing all that. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Friday edition of That's Audiophiles. My name's John. His name is Andy. Now, just walking along, my clothes are soaked right through to the skin. I haven't a doubt that this is what life is all about. More on that later. But first, we have a song to listen to. And of course, being Friday, it's one of our lovely viewers' requests. And this one is a very interesting little ditty. Conrad Walsh dropped a comment on the Morrissey I've Changed My Plea to Guilty episode, and they have suggested a track by Tears for Fears. Now, are you familiar with Tears for Fears?
I am familiar with what I've always thought to be their big three, but there are probably more than three out there. This is just through my lens. But what do we have? We have Shout, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, something like that. And then God, a great, I like both those songs, but I really love Mad World. And I think I love it so much because of that cover version from Donnie Darko, and and I've actually heard other covers of it that are really intriguing and cool too. It's just a great song. But they're not, I wouldn't really consider them, some of their stuff is so they lean into so much of the synth sound that it kind of loses me a little bit. But I know that they're a really talented group. I'd like their stuff, you know what I mean? I just don't know if I wouldn't classify myself as a fan. So chances are that I don't know enough about these guys and enough of their songs outside of those three. So I'm interested, to say the least, to give this a listen.
Okay, well, the track which Conrad has suggested is Woman in Chains.
All right. That's an evocative name. Yeah. Let me go give that a listen, and I'll come back and let you and Conrad and everyone else know what I think. This little gadgetry, whether it's like these little auxiliary percussion instruments or these lovely little melodic synthy type sounds, they're all great. It's really intriguing, fun. No idea where it's going to go from here, but we're only a minute into a 6.5 minute song, and there's a lot to be interested in thus far. I'm I'm intrigued to see where we go. You better love loving, you better behave. You better love loving, and you better behave. Woman like really pretty. It's got a lot of space to breathe. There's like a lot of sustained notes with soaring kind of vocals that lift. Um, it's good. It's got this like pure sound to it. Um, I don't know if I would necessarily say that like I would gravitate toward this necessarily. Um, but it is pretty. The production work is really great too. It's kind of sounds of its time, especially with the drum beat, like the way the drums are mixed. Um, but I do really find this to be a pretty song. Love the two voices. I'm intrigued by the subject matter. This woman in chains and world's gone crazy. But yeah, I think this would also bear a repeat listen to see how much um I enjoy it. Because I can tell you right now, I'm not like this isn't something that would I would naturally like gravitate towards, like I said, but there is value to listening to this kind of stuff and getting a better understanding for it. And I really do like all of the little sounds that are added throughout it. I mean, the beginning was chock full of them, but you still see appearances as the song progresses, and it's great. Love that guitar, the way the guitar came in there and kind of like took it to the next level too. There was kind of a shot of espresso that at that point in the song I believe it needed. So it's a lot of pretty like little bass stuff happening in there. There's a lovely little melodic guitar picking bit that's going on. That high note that was sustained there. Yeah, this is really pretty. I'm going to take this back a little bit and kind of relive this for a minute. Like a flute, or is it mimicking the sound of a flute? Yeah, this is a really intriguing song. There's a lot of little musical things happening throughout this tune and several layers. And I'd like to kind of pick through this and listen to this again. I did enjoy it. Um, again, it's not like a sound that I would normally gravitate toward, but I don't know. I guess this is the reason why we do this, and it's good that we continue to take offers from you guys because it kind of like expands our horizons a bit, and also puts bands in a different light. And this is definitely one of those situations. I, as the the fade out was occurring, I think I heard an allusion to the sun and the moon, and then I'm looking at this thumbnail and it has both the sun and the moon in it, so that kind of struck me too. Yeah, this was really pretty. God, those dual vocals were really lovely. Especially the second half as it really washed over me. You could hear it soaring. Um, the higher octave voice was soaring and it sounded so pretty. And again, all these little tiny touches and flourishes mixed low or in the background, these fleeting moments of like really lovely sounds. Uh, this was very interesting, and I'm gonna listen to this again. But I did enjoy this experience. So Conrad, thanks so much for offering this up. Let's get back to John and see if he can fill in some of the blanks for us.
Okie dokie. He has returned. What say you?
Ah man, I was a little. I saw that 6.5 minute timestamp, and I was like, "Woof, what are we going to deal with here?" And it actually went by far more quickly than I would have thought, or that I suppose I had trepidation about when I saw it. But yeah, I really enjoyed. I would say there are parts of this song stuck out to me more than others, which is probably natural for most songs, unless they're just absolute hits with you. But I really loved this intro, like the sort of tinkering around a bit, and it was like a mix between experimental stuff and like sort of a kind of conventional instrumentation, but the way it just sort of like it was all peppered in like they were making a recipe, like the beginnings of a sauce or something. You have like this drum hits, and which almost sounded like electronic drums at this part of the song anyway. um Chunky bass, synth keynotes and chords. There were shakers, like block strikes, these like sort of the auxiliary percussive instruments, this tinkly guitar bits that were going on, and likely others instruments that I didn't even like pick up on given the first listen. um and the male vocalist comes in almost this like crooning, his sort of portion. It's not like he's belting, I should say, it out, right? Like this is a little bit of restraint to his voice, and making some allusions to "Woman in Chains," which I've heard that I will, as the song progresses, hear several times throughout it. So I definitely picked up on the title of the track. Um, and then comes in this higher registered female vocalist. And she also has restraint in her voice, but it's the kind of restraint that conveys that there's something far more to her voice than what she's placed in the situation, like how her voice is used in the song, which I think is clever and maybe intentional. Um, it's airy, but it's got some, despite all that restraint, it's still noticeably powerful. Like there's power in this voice. And in the verse, it also appears to be what sounds like either real flute or synthetic, like so sort of synthesized flute sound, or like something akin to a flute is being used there, I think. And I thought that was really interesting and really quite beautiful and melodic. Like I liked what that offered, as simple as it was. Um, and during the chorus, there are these like really beautifully picked guitars. That's really it has this like tranquil sound to it. And the drums are really crisp and well produced. They definitely sound of the time. The depth of the production on the drum hits is very like 80s ish. And I don't know, it just stuck out to me a lot. I really enjoyed the drums in this track. They didn't always go off, but when they had little moments, I'm like, man, they sound really well produced and really good. Um, and I guess what I'm saying about the female vocalist, right, is like I appreciate her voice, and I know that like if I had heard her sing in another song where she could go full belt, I'd be like, oh man, what a set of pipes. But this felt like it was intentionally restrained as almost like a sort of a nod to the theme of this song. given the name of it, I think we kind of both know what it's like about, right? Or generally, I got this like shades of like the patriarchy and what it's like to keep a woman in a certain role or position or whatever. So it felt to me like this was like about the woman's plight living in a patriarchal society. Around the 437 mark, the electric guitar chord strikes, and it's like urgent. And I really, really enjoyed that a lot. This is sort of where my next favorite part of the song is. It's sort of from here to the fade out. I really, really enjoyed this. It sort of lifts the song and opens it up. There's this great guitar picking that occurs as well, and the voices commingle so well. It has this real soaring quality to it, and it's like you're being lifted as this part progresses and builds. um it isn't something that I would normally seek out, like which I think I've kind of conveyed in the intro to this video, but like I wouldn't have listened to this on my own, which is a great, this is a great excuse and platform to listen to what other people, to force myself essentially to listen to what other people recommend as good songs. And I enjoyed it. Like it isn't something that I would have been like, oh, this is a classic Andy song, but there is a lot of beauty in the arrangement and the production work that I talked about earlier, and just the instrumentation, particularly in the beginning. There's a lot of like using of musical imagination to create all those different sounds and build everything into this, and then two really really great voices. I would lean more into thinking that the woman was the better singer of the two, but still both played their part and played their part well. I didn't catch all the lyrics of the song, but like I said earlier, I kind of gleaned from it that it's kind of this woman empowerment situation that we're talking about here. And really great song. I enjoyed it. It was an excellent pick by Conrad, and kind of like opened my eyes up a little bit more to Tears for Fears. I've always kind of like, I don't want to say that I thought of them as a novelty act. That's far too pejorative, but like I felt like they were always confined to just their sound, and that was what I got with like their more poppier hits. But this is more thoughtful and intricate, I think, than some of those. Not to say that I like it more. Mad World, I think, is probably my favorite, will always be my favorite song by them. But it is, and maybe Mad World has a little bit of that too to it, and that's why I like it. But this is really this is thoughtful, I think, and interesting. And it's if Tears for Fears are like mainly two guys, aren't they? Or am I totally mistaken on that? So this, again, I guess I bring that up, and thank you for confirming my suspicions. That this is really interesting for them to kind of step outside of their probably their comfort zones, to talk about an issue or invite another artist, I would assume, into the fold to speak about an issue like this and give a platform to some sort of feminist kind of approach to songwriting.
Okay, yeah, cool. I'll give you my thoughts on what on the song as well, and then we'll go into a bit about the band and about the song. So yeah, you won't be surprised to hear this. I prefer the earlier stuff. Um, Interesting, although you're quite correct. They were like new wavy at the start and synth based, but there's some songs on there which are their first album I really, really like. That one there, Pale Shelter, is my favorite of theirs.
Okay.
And they developed their sound and grew it later. And by this stage, he's really getting into the production really heavily. And there's the two guys sing, and I actually prefer Kurt's voice to Roland. Roland's one singing in this. Um, but they what you do get from this song, and probably of a similar thing. It's not a song I would seek out or like, oh, time to listen to this. But what you get from it is this like feeling of quality to it. It's
Mhm.
really well done. And it may
Exactly.
not be completely my cup of tea, but it is really well done. And that sort of thoughtfulness that you mentioned and that quality wins you over anyway in the end.
Yeah.
That's what it did with me. Um,
Then
So
yeah,
yeah,
I think then we're of one mind. Then if that is your stance as well, because that's what I was trying to convey.
so Tears for Fears, they were, I didn't write this down, but they used to be in a mod revival band. And I saw a clip of them on telly, and they weren't very good, and they weren't quite successful. So that finished. They formed Tears for Fears in 1981. They're from Bath, and they're still going to this day. And the two main guys, Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith. So initially they were a new wave act, and their debut album, The Hurting, 1983, reached #1 for a brand new band. That's really good going. And their
Mhm.
first three singles, which were Mad World, Change, and Pale Shelter, all hit the top five in the UK, which again is something. Um, if you get a chance, you check out the original video for Mad World, because Roland's dancing is this kind of new wave Tai Chi, and it is enormously entertaining. He sort of does this. It's really, really cool. And there's a bit towards the end where it's almost silhouetted on this lakeside, and he's doing all his, and he's like invisible nunchuckers, and he's doing
Yeah.
all that. And it's that. It's Do you know what? It's completely ridiculous. Then after about 30 seconds, you just swept up in it again. Oh, this is really cool. So their second album, Songs from the Big Chair, 1985, got to #1 in the USA as well, multi-platinum on both sides of the Atlantic, huge stardom. It contained two #1 singles in America with Shout and Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Um, Slight Break, 1989, third album, Seeds of Love, which, as I say, this is when he's really getting, and Roland's really taken over at this point, and he's doing all the production stuff, and Kurt's more of a bit player at this part.
Yeah.
It went straight in the UK charts to #1, and this song is the first track from that album, from 1989. So, personnel for this, because they used to bring in other artists and other performers to, I mean, I think at the start, although I haven't checked, it was really they're augmenting their sound with synths and stuff. So they only need the two of them. And
Yeah.
then they brought in more and more as they became successful. And they would broaden their own musical palette as well. So Ryder's vocals, keyboards, Fairlight programming, and guitar. Oleta Adams vocals and keyboards, and she did go on to have a successful solo career. I don't know much about her, so I don't know how successful it was, but I'm sure in her milieu is great. Kurt is playing bass on this. Neil Taylor, guitar arpeggio. So that's the nice little bits you hear
Yeah.
towards the end. Now here's the really interesting bit: two drummers. Manu Katché was drumming from the start up to 3 minutes 32. And at 3 minutes 32 to the end, it was Phil Collins.
Ah. Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Louis Jardim on percussion, Tessa Niles back in vocals, and Carol Kenyon back in vocals. So from this song, I'll go through some of the explanations and I'll do the lyrics, so you'll see. So at the time, Oswald explained the song to Melody Maker. And he said, I was reading some feminist literature at the time, and I discovered there were societies in the world still in existence today that are non-patriarchal. They don't have the man at the top and the woman at the bottom. They matricentric. They have the woman at the center, and these societies are a lot less violent, a lot less greedy, and there's generally less animosity. But the song is also about how men traditionally play down the feminine side of their characters and how both men and women suffer for it. I think men in a patriarchal society are sold down the river a bit. Okay, maybe we're told that we're in control, but there are also a hell of a lot of things that we miss out on, which women are allowed to be. However, during a 2021 interview with Louder website, when asked if the song is the feminist anthem that it's usually read as, Oswald replied, it's really about my mother. At one point in her life, she was a stripper. My father and she ran an entertainment agency from a council house in Portsmouth. So she would go out and strip, and my father would send a driver out with her to spy on her. If she talked to another man, when she came back, he would beat her up. So it's about domestic abuse.
Jesus.
So it's quite nice that he gives two different versions. It's what we come to expect from some, artists. But
Yeah.
yeah, real sunny sort of happy-go-lucky. So, lyrics.
Mm.
You better love loving and you better behave. You better love loving and you better behave. Woman in chains, woman in chains. Calls her man the great white hope. Says she's fine, she'll always cope. Oh, woman in chains, woman in chains. They do that bit. And then in comes Phil Collins. Well, I feel like lying and waiting is a poor man's deal. Poor man's deal. And I hopelessly weighed down by your eyes of steel. Your eyes of steel. Well, it's a world gone crazy. Keeps a woman in chains. Oh, a woman in chains, woman in chains. Trades her soul as skin and bones. Sells the only thing she owns. Oh no, women in chains, women in chains. Men of stone, men of stone. Oh no, 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 no. Well, I feel deep down in your heart there are wounds time can't heal. And I feel somebody somewhere is trying to breathe. Well, you know what I mean. It's a world gone crazy, keeps women in chains. It's under my skin, but out of my hands. I'll tear it apart, but I won't understand. I will not accept the greatness of man. So, well, gone crazy keeps a woman in chains. Gone crazy keeps a woman in chains. There's that guitar bit, and then it comes back with "So free her." 15 times, so free her, so free her. And they sings a couple of times the sun and the moon, the wind and the rain, sort of over the
Mhm.
top of so free her, so free her. And that's the lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah, I caught the Great White Hope bit, and I caught the allusion at the end to the sun and the moon because I
Yeah.
remember looking at
Game
the
of Thrones.
thumbnail and it had like a sun and the moon on it, and it said that. I was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's on the
yeah, I had
album
that.
cover, and it just makes me think of Game of Thrones as well. But anyway,
Yeah,
we see that.
I can see that
But
now.
anyway,
Yeah.
following the tour of this album, there was a quite acrimonious split, and Ozabal actually continued under the Tears for Fears name on his own, just getting in other people. Him and Kurt reconciled in 2000, and you're quite right. 2001's Donnie Darko. They included one of their songs, Head Over Heels. It's like the scene outside of the school. And then Gary Jules' version of Mad World, which was a massive hit across the
Yeah.
world. And that really helped their profile. Um, Interestingly, I didn't know anything about this album was the last I remembered of them. But their latest album, The Tipping Point, from 2022,
Oh, wow.
went top 5 in the UK and top 10 in America. So
No shit.
they're doing something right.
Wow. I'm
I think they
surprised that
become more.
didn't come
Yeah,
across my like radar.
yeah.
It's
I had
interesting.
no idea either. But I think they became. I haven't heard their stuff recently, but from this album, definitely they became slightly more mainstream, and there's more influences. Like there's a bit of soul in there, and there's a bit of world music, and there's other stuff. He's definitely opening out his. I think I'd say his. So I think it was Roland in particular that drove this. His influences and his musical palette was really expanding, and so good on him for that. I mean,
Yeah.
as I say, it's not 100% what I would go for, but that doesn't make a blind bit of difference. And they multi platinum selling albums, so they're hitting the right spots for many people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, they've gotten a sound to them that I understand translates. If it doesn't with me, that doesn't mean I'm blind to the fact that I know these guys have probably got a pretty large following. And I would say deservedly so, especially the more like I sort of take down my walls and barriers and like old prejudices that the foundations of which have crumbled at this point. I might as well just let new stuff in, even if that new stuff is in this case old.
Mhm.
And it's good. It was a good listen. It was kind of an interesting listen, and like as
Yeah,
far as perspective goes and how collaboration and talking about issues maybe that don't directly affect you, or years down the line you say they actually do with this other explanation for the lyrics or whatever. All of that is wildly interesting to me,
yeah.
both situations, whether it's very much intimately about him or he's like, hey, like this, I want to get behind this cause that doesn't affect me but I think is important or whatever. Either way, that's a really cool way to go about writing songs and bringing attention to stuff. So good listen.
Yeah, yeah. I will say that I had an idea about this song, and what it sounded like before I heard it again, as it were. Um, and yeah, as you say, the sort of the bits in it, the quality made me sort of reassess it. It's like Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That was played to goddamn death. And of course, they used it for the first sport aid in this country. It was Everybody Wants to Run the World, the t-shirts, and it was just on all the time. And I got very sick of that song. But actually, when you listen to it again, it's got a lovely sound to it.
Yeah.
And again, it's this quality which they have. So, fair play to them.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. I shall wrap things up, and I shall say thank you, Andy, for listening to this,
Thank you, and thank
and
Conrad.
also to Conrad as well for giving it up to us. It was really interesting to hear this again, actually, and sort of reevaluate it. So yeah, this is a nice one. Thanks to folks out there for listening to it. Let us know what you think about this song. If you liked it, please do hit the like button and drop some comments. What you think about Tears for Fears in general, this song in particular. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Really welcome all your comments. It's great to see them, all your info and your snippets of insight and randomness as well. Makes our day. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and help us build this channel. We are creeping along slowly, catching monkey. I don't know what the monkey is we're catching, but we're going to catch it. So yeah, that being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.